In the dim glow of his home office, billionaire tech mogul Alexander Harrington stared at the flickering screen, his heart pounding like a war drum. The hidden cameras he'd installed just days ago were meant to safeguard his only son, Ethan, who lay paralyzed in his bed upstairs, helpless after a tragic car accident that had shattered their world. But as Alexander fast-forwarded through the footage, his blood ran cold. There, in the dead of night, the new maid, Maria, slipped into Ethan's room. She approached the bed, her face shadowed, and leaned in close, her hands reaching out. What she did next would change everything, but would it destroy them, or save them? Alexander Harrington wasn't always the cold, calculating tycoon the world knew him as. Born in a rundown apartment in Chicago, he clawed his way up from nothing, building a software empire that revolutionized data security. By 40, he was a millionaire many times over, with a sprawling mansion in the hills of California, a loving wife named Sophia, and their bright-eyed son, Ethan, who at 12 years old dreamed of becoming an astronaut. Life was a symphony of success, private jets, charity galas, and family vacations to exotic beaches. But success, Alexander learned, was fragile. One rainy evening 3 years ago, while driving home from Ethan's soccer game, a drunk driver slammed into their car. Sophia didn't survive. Ethan, thrown from the back seat, woke up in the hospital unable to move his legs. The doctors called it paraplegia, permanent, they said. Alexander's world crumbled. Guilt consumed him. He should have hired a driver that night, should have been more careful. He poured millions into therapies, experimental treatments, and the best caregivers money could buy, but nothing brought back the boy who used to race through the house with boundless energy. In the months that followed, Alexander became a ghost in his own home. He buried himself in work, leaving Ethan's care to a revolving door of nurses and aides. But Ethan grew withdrawn, his once sparkling eyes dulled by pain and isolation. "Dad, I just want to feel normal again," he'd whisper during their rare dinners together. Alexander's heart ached, but he didn't know how to fix it. That's when he hired Maria Valdez, a quiet woman in her mid-40s with impeccable references from a nursing agency. She had a gentle smile, spoke softly with a faint Mexican accent, and seemed genuinely kind. "I'll treat him like my own," she promised during the interview. Alexander nodded, desperate for stability. For the first few weeks, things seemed perfect. Maria prepared Ethan's meals with care, read him stories from his favorite sci-fi books, and even wheeled him out to the garden to watch the sunsets. Ethan started smiling more, laughing at her jokes. But Alexander couldn't shake a nagging doubt. Why did Maria sometimes linger in Ethan's room after he fell asleep? What was she whispering to him in those quiet moments? Paranoia crept in, fueled by his tech-savvy mind. He'd built his fortune on surveillance software, why not use it here? One sleepless night, Alexander decided to act. He installed hidden cameras throughout the house, tiny lenses disguised in clocks, picture frames, and light fixtures. "It's for protection," he told himself, though deep down, it was fear of losing the only piece of his family left. The next day, he reviewed the footage casually at first, expecting nothing. But as the hours ticked by on the screen, something caught his eye. It was late evening, the house quiet. Maria entered Ethan's room, her usual routine, adjusting his pillows, checking his medications. But then she paused, glancing around as if sensing she was being watched. She pulled a small vial from her pocket, something unmarked, not from the prescribed list. Alexander's breath hitched. She uncapped it, poured a few drops into Ethan's water glass, and stirred it gently. Ethan drank it without question, trusting her completely. What was in that vial? Poison? Some illicit drug? Alexander's mind raced with horrors. He slammed his laptop shut, his hands trembling. This couldn't be happening, not to his son. The discovery haunted Alexander through the next day. He paced his office, debating whether to confront Maria or call the police. But he needed more proof. That evening, he dove deeper into the footage, skipping to nighttime clips. There she was again, slipping into the room like a shadow. This time, she didn't just whisper. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands hovering over Ethan's legs. She began massaging them slowly, methodically, murmuring words Alexander couldn't make out. Ethan's face twisted in discomfort, but he didn't cry out. Was she hurting him? Alexander zoomed in, his pulse thundering. Maria's expression wasn't malicious, it was tender. No, that couldn't be right. He rewound, watched again. Then, in a hushed voice caught by the audio, she said, "One day, Mijo, you'll walk again. I promise." Alexander froze. What did she mean? Was this some kind of delusion? Or worse, was she experimenting on his son? He stood up, ready to storm upstairs, but the footage continued. Maria reached into her bag and pulled out a worn notebook, flipping through pages filled with handwritten notes and diagrams. She glanced at the door nervously, then began a strange routine, gentle stretches, pressure points on Ethan's limbs, even what looked like acupuncture without needles. Ethan's breathing steadied, and for a moment, his toes twitched. Impossible, the doctors had said. Alexander's world tilted. Was this hope, or a dangerous game? Torn between rage and curiosity, Alexander dug into Maria's background. He used his company's resources, discreetly, of course, to pull records. What he found shattered his assumptions. Maria Valdez wasn't just a maid, she had a history buried in tragedy. Born in a small village in Mexico, she'd trained as a nurse in her youth, specializing in rehabilitation. But 15 years ago, her own son, Javier, had been paralyzed in a farming accident. Desperate, she'd turned to alternative therapies, ancient herbal remedies from her grandmother, combined with modern physiotherapy she'd learned online. Against all odds, Javier had regained partial mobility. But the story didn't end there. Accused of practicing medicine without a full license, Maria lost her job, her reputation tarnished. She fled to the U.S., taking low-paying caregiving roles to support her family back home. Alexander stared at the screen, photos of a young Javier in a wheelchair, then walking with crutches. Maria wasn't harming Ethan, she was healing him in ways traditional medicine had failed. But why hide it? Fear of rejection, perhaps, or fear of a powerful man like him. The weight of it all pressed on Alexander. He watched more footage, seeing the bond between Maria and Ethan grow. She shared stories of her village, taught him Spanish phrases, even sang lullabies that brought tears to Ethan's eyes. "You're strong, like my Javier," she'd say. Ethan opened up to her in ways he never did with Alexander, confessing his fears of being a burden, his dreams fading away. One clip showed Ethan laughing hysterically as Maria mimicked a clumsy dance, wheeling him around the room. Alexander felt a pang of jealousy, mixed with gratitude. But doubt lingered. What if her methods were risky? What if they backfired? He decided to test her. The next morning, he casually mentioned Ethan's latest doctor's report, pessimistic as always. Maria's eyes flickered with something unspoken. "Senor Harrington," she said softly, "sometimes miracles come from unexpected places." Alexander nodded, but inside, he was planning. That night, he left a note in Ethan's room, disguised as a reminder, check the vial. If she was honest, she'd explain. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Alexander couldn't wait. He called Maria into his study that afternoon, the footage paused on his screen. "What is this?" he demanded, playing the clip of her with the vial. Maria's face paled, her hands clasping together. "Senor, please, it's not what you think." She explained everything, the herbal tonic from natural roots, proven safe in her culture, meant to reduce inflammation and stimulate nerves. "I didn't tell you because I was afraid. People like me were not believed." Alexander's anger softened as she spoke of Javier, pulling out faded photos from her wallet. He was like Ethan, broken, hopeless. But love and persistence, they work wonders. Ethan, wheeled in by a nurse, overheard. "Dad, she's helping me. I felt something yesterday. A tingle in my feet." Alexander's eyes widened. Was it possible? The doctors had said no, but here was proof, flickering on the screen and shining in his son's hopeful gaze. But just as resolution seemed near, Maria dropped a bombshell. "There's more. Javier, he didn't fully recover on his own. There was a surgery, experimental, but I couldn't afford it for him. For Ethan, with your resources." She trailed off, her voice breaking. Alexander realized the depth of her sacrifice. She'd been preparing Ethan for something bigger, risking everything to give him a chance. The path ahead wasn't easy. Alexander faced his own demons, his guilt over the accident, his emotional distance from Ethan. He hired specialists to verify Maria's methods, blending her holistic approach with cutting-edge stem cell therapy. Challenges mounted. Ethan's body resisted at first, sessions grueling and painful. There were setbacks, an infection from the herbs, doubts from the medical team. Alexander and Maria clashed too. He accused her of overstepping, she called him out for his absentee fatherhood. "Money can't buy time with your son," she said one heated night. It stung, but it woke him up. He started joining the therapy sessions, holding Ethan's hand through the agony, sharing stories of Sophia to keep spirits high. Ethan, caught in the middle, became the bridge. "We're a team now," he'd say, his voice gaining strength. Maria's presence wove them together, her unwavering faith infectious. Weeks turned to months, and small victories piled up, Ethan wiggling his toes, then lifting a knee. The mansion, once a tomb of silence, echoed with laughter and determination. One crisp autumn morning, the breakthrough came. In the garden, under the golden leaves, Ethan stood, with crutches, shaky but standing. Alexander wept openly, hugging his son for the first time in years. Maria stood back, tears streaming, her notebook clutched like a talisman. "You did this," Alexander told her. "No, we all did," she replied. He offered her a full-time position, funding for Javier's further treatment, even a stake in a new rehab center inspired by her techniques. But the real change was deeper. Alexander stepped back from his empire, prioritizing family. Ethan, now 15, enrolled in adaptive sports, his astronaut dreams reignited. "Pain doesn't define us," he told his dad. "What we do with it does." As the sun set on their renewed life, Alexander reflected on the cameras that started it all. They'd revealed not danger, but devotion, a reminder that trust, when earned, can heal the deepest wounds. In a world quick to judge, Maria's quiet courage showed that heroes come in unexpected forms. And for anyone watching, remember, miracles aren't always grand, sometimes, they're in the gentle hands that care when no one's looking. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of hope and humanity. Thanks for joining us, see you in the next one.